Hello everyone, welcome to this video where we are actually going to learn variables and constants in Python. So in our last video we had an introduction with Google's Colab, and I hope everyone has actually tried it, and you can actually now start using Google Colab and practice the very first instruction that we give to the computer to print hello world. And today we will actually move one step further by understanding variables and constants in Python. I actually have prepared a notebook for you in which we have covered various components, and I will take you through those various components of Python one by one in next few videos, and I will even share that notebook with you so that you can also practice. But first, until we complete it, I will not share it so that we can actually finish this work, you can actually learn and practice, and then I can give you that notebook as well to play with it. What I really want you to do is to actually watch this video and actually practice those steps that we do together. So we dive directly into the programming now, and in last video we showed you how to use Google Colab. I even have it right here available, so I will just click, and if some of you have not watched the previous video, I will definitely suggest to watch the video, or you can actually type this link colab.research.google.com to actually view this page. And now, as I mentioned earlier, we already have a notebook that we prepared, and once I open this link, it is asking me to write a new notebook. We have tried it in the previous video, and or it is asking me to actually check some recent notebooks, check it from my Google Drive, from GitHub, or or I can even upload. So I will suggest the option to upload, so that when you actually receive a notebook from anyone, you can actually come to at this place, browse that notebook, and I'm going to browse it, and the name of that notebook is Python tutorial. It was actually present in my downloads, and I will click it and open, and this notebook will actually open in this Google Colab environment, and I can actually start taking you through it. So we already have done an introduction to Python, and there are a lot of things that we will cover in this course, like variables and constants that we are going to study in this video, and then the print function, f strings, type conversions, a lot that is coming ahead, and I will take you through all those things. Now, in introduction to Python, actually, Python is actually a very famous programming language. We already did a small intro to that, and it is used in various fields: data science, machine learning, web development, artificial intelligence, automation, scientific computing. Python is actually widely used programming language in versatility of applications. And popular applications built using Python includes YouTube, where you are watching this video at the moment, even some other companies like Instagram, Spotify, and many others. They actually use Python in one way or another to actually take advantage of the flexibility and a lot of work that has been done in Python that makes it a very useful and important programming language. And the first program in Python, in our last video we wrote our first Python program where we printed hello world, and in this one we can also start doing it. And if you remember that I mentioned that there is a grammatical rule which we call syntax. So I give this example in previous video that if you say this is a cat, okay, or it's a dog, or this is a box, for example, and you will not say it are a box, because is should follow it. It's a grammatical rule. Same here, we have some grammatical rules that we always follow. Like if I say I want to print something, okay, why do we even care about printing something on the screen? When there is an error, or if the computer wants to show you a notification, it is printed on your screen. So print has an importance. How do you get a notification on your mobile phone if you receive a message on WhatsApp? Because it has been printed. So print is actually an important command. And in order to actually print something, we will actually call this keyword print, and I will explain what this keyword is later. We write these parentheses. Anything that we want to print, we first write the keyword print, and then we have those two parentheses, and we write anything between double quotes. We can either use double quotes or we can use single quotes. But remember, it should be consistent. For example, if I click here, it will print hello world. So it will just connect first time. So it's just connecting the kernel. You will understand what the kernel is actually over time when we actually do some things. So as I showed one thing last time is if you click on the code, it adds a code cell. You can read here that if I take my cursor on code, it is saying add code cell, and if I take my cursor on text, it says add text cell, and text cell is just to have any text written for understanding. Now we have executed this cell by clicking here. This is a run cell button. If I click here again, what it says, it will run the cell. And you can alternatively do Control plus Enter. These two keys, if you press them, you can actually print this thing. Now I was giving you an example that you can even use single quote. So I will click here, and then what I will do, I will try to add a code cell. Now it just added a code cell on top, no problem. As I said, you can use double quotes or you can use single quotes, but please be consistent in using them. So if I write print hello world, I can even make it the same way so that we don't get confused, and that's it. And if I click here to just print it, so the result is same if I use single quotes or I use double quotes, but I cannot be inconsistent. For example, if I have a single quote here and I add a double quote here, this will not work and it will give us an error. And what error it has given us? Syntax error. So syntax is what? There are some grammatical rules in every language, even in human languages, in programming languages, that we have to follow. So what it is saying, unterminated string literal. What is string? So all of the text that we have, it is represented as string. So please mark my word, all the text that we have, we call it string. It is a type of data. So we will also go through the data types, but I have started showing it to you. String is a data type. In order to correct this error, what we should do, we should be consistent. So either I use single quote or I use double quotes. I say, okay, I will use single quote to actually close this string, and then I will try to run it again using Control Enter this time, and see, the error has gone. So we have to be consistent with that. Please remember this thing. And also, now we already have seen one example of syntax. As we are moving forward, we will also go through many other examples. One example here that I have just added is to actually give an understanding of indentations. Indentation is spacing. If you see the two lines of code written here, it is just simple English, but it has a very specific purpose. And the purpose of having a space, which this space you can see, which I call indentation, it has a specific purpose. This indentation is here as 4 spaces. Either you use spaces or you use a tab. Tab is good. You can always be using tab. I also use tabs a lot. So please, that's a convention that you have to follow, but you either use spaces or you use tab. You cannot start having both of them. Otherwise, there can be some errors in your scripts during execution. So why I write if in a simple English language, there is a condition that we are evaluating here. And we say if 6, and then we have this operator which we call greater than, I say if 6 space is greater than 3, and at the end I have this colon. So again, we will go into more details about this, but this is also another syntax for a condition. So if I want to say if 6 is greater than 3, then at the end of my condition, I must specify this colon, which will indicate that my condition ends here. Now, if 6 is greater than 3, I want to print a text which we call string. Remember? Oh, so it has actually asked us to Colab is for interactive use. Please confirm that you are present to continue. Yes, I'm not a robot. Thank you. And now we say if 6 is greater than 3, print 6 is greater than 3 in text. I can click and it has printed it again. We can even say that if 6 is less than 3 and I press Control Enter, 6 is not less than 3, so we have not seen that text. But again, if I go back, if 6 is greater than 3 and I press Control Enter, it prints it. So there is a understanding of this condition, and then there is a purpose of this tab. Now if I remove this tab like this, the code is same. I just removed that indentation. And if I run this again, you can use Control Enter or you can click here. It's your choice. Okay, so you have another error which is called indentation error. So first we saw the syntax error. You have learned how to actually handle the syntax errors by following the correct syntax of the programming language. Now there is an indentation error. Why? Because if you have a condition, it expects the next piece of code to be in an indented block, which means there should be a tab to actually specify that this piece of code is followed by this condition. So once this condition is true, then this piece of code should be executed. And now when I have added this tab back, so one thing that I would like to tell you is that inside the Google Colab, if you press tab once, it will give you a spacing of 2 spaces. If you press tab again, it will give you a spacing of 4 spaces. I will always suggest using the 4 spaces tab, not 2, just to be consistent in your Colab code, or if you export this code to any other IDE integrated development environment. We will also try to run for that as well. So I click here again, everything has gone better, error resolved. Okay. Moving to the next thing, Python comments. And comments are actually comments. It's simple English that what is the purpose of comment? It's just to provide some information. They have nothing to do with execution. They are just there to explain the purpose of the code. So here we have, this is a single line comment. This comment is at the end of the line. Now, there is one understanding that you may take from here, that there is a hash. Whenever there is a hash and anything after that is a comment. So if I execute this thing, there is no error. But if I actually remove this thing, now I removed the hash. If I press Control Enter, invalid syntax. The computer does not even recognize what this line is here for. So it is not a piece of code. It does not follow the grammatical language of the Python. So it is giving us an error. If I put the hash again and then try to run, everything is okay. It's always a good convention to have one single space after the hash for the comment, but even if you don't put that thing, it does not give you an error. And you can place these comments before or after any command in the same line. Once you have completed your instruction, you can write your comment there as well to explain the purpose of this thing. So we have seen syntax errors, we have seen indentation errors, we have also seen what are comments. Remember, comments are to remind you about the code. Comments are there to actually specify what is the purpose of this code, because if you write a code today and you do not write anything there to actually explain the purpose of why you have written that code, in future after 2, 3, 5 or 10 days when you see that code, you will not even remember. So it is a good programming practice to write comments, not only for you, for others who also try to read your code. So please do follow that practice. Then we can also go through these multi-line comments. And what are these multi-line comments? Where you want to even write some large piece of text as a comment, a very detailed description of the purpose of your project, of your code. Then you can actually use these 3 consecutive single quotes or double quotes to actually write it. It is the same thing that we did for single quotes. Like if you want to have multiple lines, you need to use this format where you have 3 single quotes first, whatever you write in between, and after that you put 3 single quotes. It will be considered as a comment. I can click enter here, see. And now if I even come here and I write double quotes, I have to be consistent. We saw it earlier. And then if I run it again, so remember, if you have 3 quotes in the double quotes in the beginning, 3 double quotes at the end, or if 3 single quotes in the beginning, 3 single quotes at the end, you can write comments in multiple lines. And if I do this thing, for example, if I make it 1, what will happen? If I press Control Enter, unterminated string literal, there is a syntax error that if you want to write something, it is not closing, because single quote is for a single line. So if I want to make this thing work, I should either take it in one line. So I just take these things back, but still it will give us no error, but it does not serve the purpose that if we want to have multiple lines, how do we have multiple lines? Like this thing will have errors. So in order to actually have multiple lines, we will just actually have these 3 quotes, and and I can write here, we modified it, and press Control Enter. See? So comments purpose is for clarification and for information, so that any complex piece of code that you have written, you can actually explain it, and so that it can be useful for others when they see your code. And now we are actually going deeper into the variables actually and constants that we intentionally wanted to cover in this video. But those other things, they were important as an introduction. Now, if we talk about variables and constants, a variable is a named location in memory. Remember one thing, whenever we have a variable, so let's do it in this way. So if we have a variable, variable is something that can actually have a value that can actually change. So for example, I say variable x. Now this x can have any value, and if I say constant y, then I'm expecting that the value is constant, that it will not change over time. This is actually a very basic understanding that we all have from the mathematics, and it's clear to everyone. Now, the same thing applies in programming. If you have a variable, it means that you can change that value can actually change. And if you have a constant, it means that the value for that will remain constant. And what can be a variable thing? For example, a variable can be age of users. So we have a mobile phone application and we want to store the age of each user as a variable in the background, and that can be a variable. Every new user has a different age. We will be saving that age of the user. What can be constant actually? A constant can be the application that we are using. So if we are using WhatsApp, so for which application we are considering the age of the users? WhatsApp. It's constant. Okay. And if we are actually talking about a city, okay, and we are just considering everybody residing in that city, and we want to do a count of the population and how many are males and how many are females, then that city will become a constant, because we are just that thing is not changing. What is changing is that we are counting actually how many males and how many females, how many children are actually living in this city. And now going back to the example of various variables and constants, one thing that I will go back and try to emphasize is that when you initialize a variable, initialize is a technical term, but you will get used to it. If you initialize a variable x, this x upon initialization is allocated a memory location. When a variable is initialized, on initialization, it is allocated a memory location where the value of this variable will be stored. So every variable has a memory location where its value is stored. Okay. And same goes for constant as well, because constant still has a value, it has to be stored. So it also has a memory location. So every value, whether it is stored in a variable or a constant, it will be allocated a memory location in the computer memory. Okay. And that is where we know that the value is stored. And moving on to variable and constant. So as I give an example of age, here we have a value stored as age equals 25. What we are doing here, what do we call this thing? I'm putting a comment here. We are initializing a variable. See, I just have added a comment and it will not even impact the syntax or the code, because I just added a comment initializing a variable age equal 25, and here we have a constant. There is no physical difference between variable and constant when you see in programming, but there is a convention in Python that is normally used, that if you are using a value as a constant, it is capitalized. So all the letters of that name will be capitalized. But if you are using a variable, then you don't use capital letters. It's a convention, and it's a good convention to actually have an understanding that this is a constant or it's a variable. Sometimes you can even have variables that are very long, like maybe 2 words, 3 words, how to actually write them. So in that case, so for example, first I will execute this cell. Nothing happened because we initialized variable and we initialized a constant. So we initialized a constant. Now I can run it again over here. what we can even do, we can add a code cell, and in this code cell we'll do an example. Now if the age value was 25, I will print age. Now this is another example I want to share. Before, what we were doing, anything that we wanted to print, we were actually adding it in double quotes. But now if we actually have this value stored in a variable, we can print it exactly by just providing that variable to print statement, but still inside the parenthesis. If I click print, it has printed 25. Remember that we saved the value of 25 in age variable. Now if I actually come here and have another cell, now I will change the value of age equal 33, and then I will print age again, and what will happen? Now the age is 33 because I have assigned a new value to age. Similarly, I can add a comma here and print this constant pi here as well. So if I have two of these variables and constants that I want to print, I can separate them by a comma and add pi here, and then control enter again. Now you will see 33, which is the age, and 3.14159, which is the value of pi printed together. And these were use cases of variables, and there are different data types actually. And if we talk about the data types, we call them integer. And what is an integer actually? Integer is actually a number that is a whole number, or that does not actually has any decimal value, and like this. So if you have a decimal value, we call it a float, and if you don't have a decimal value, it can be a whole number, positive or negative, and we call it integer. So integer is a data type, and in Python we show it as int, short form of integer. Float is just written as float, and I can continue executing it. There will be no problem. Price is 19.99. Okay, it can be the price of anything. Now name equal Alice. Very nice. So you remember we printed anything that was inside the double quotes in the beginning, and we specified it inside the parenthesis, and now we have name Alice. I can actually write any name here. You can write your name here. So I can even change it to XYZ, so that all of us can try our own names when we run this notebook. And this text that is inside the double quotes, or it can be inside the single quotes as we discussed earlier, this is called string data type. So we have learned integer data types, which are numbers, whole numbers, positive, negative, but without decimals. We have floats, which include the decimal points. We have the strings, which actually include any kind of text. And sorry, Control Z. And now what I can do, I can print name. Now remember, previously we had everything written in double quotes pasted inside the parenthesis. Now we know that we already have double quotes and we have a text written inside the double quotes that is saved inside the variable name. So what we can do now, we can actually print the variable and it will show us the value. So when I execute the cell, it shows us XYZ, and we can even say ABC and execute it again. I change the value of the string variable and we have printed it. There is another important data type sorry, that we call Boolean. Boolean is true or false. Is he a student or he's not a student? So that is actually a Boolean data type, and we call it as true or false. And so if I print here like this, uh, I can actually do say print is student. If I am a student, I'm just printing, it is printing value true. And this is actually the representation of the value. So it only has two types, two values, true or false. So if I say false, then it will print false. So that is an indication of conditions. There are some conditions that can be true, there can be some conditions that can be false. So Boolean is a data type to actually indicate those conditions. So we have actually gone through 4 data types: integers, which are whole numbers without any decimal places. They can be positive and negative. We have seen floats, which have decimals. They can be positive and negative as well. We can even have another number which is minus 19.9. Oh, sorry, prices cannot be negative actually, but there can be temperature, for example. I can say temperature can be negative and it can be minus 5.3. And what I can do, I can print the price, and then I can even print the temperature together. See, so we have actually printed the price and we have also printed the temperature. And then we have the string, that is a text, and then we have this is student false, which is just a condition. And also I can remember that in the beginning we did operators, and in operators we have used if 6 greater than 3. I will give you an example of what it looks like. So I'm going to do something here, 6 greater than 3. Now 6 is actually greater than 3. It is true. If I execute it, it will print true. And if I say 6 is less than 3 and I print it, it will say false. No, it's wrong. So that is the conditional thing about the Boolean data type. It has only two values, true or false. And so we have actually studied. Next time, in the next video, in next week, we will learn about the print functions. We have a lot to actually cover. We will learn print functions, f strings, type conversion operators, taking user input, control flow, functions, data structures, lists, dicts, tuples, and list comprehensions, file handling, a lot. We will actually cover this in the next week. Till then, please do practice all these things that I have demonstrated today, and I will actually see you next week with all the rest of the content, and I wish you happy learning. Please, if you have any questions, comment them, and let me know if I can actually improve my methods and actually share more knowledge with you. I will see you next time. Till then, happy learning. Thank you.